Hey everyone, Oscar here. Today I'm here to talk about Link versus the Tarnished as a matchup. Link has been on Death Battle 2 times, and both of those times he fought against the exact same person, which is a bit of a shame. So why did I pick Link versus the Tarnished? Well, it's a pretty popular matchup, so much so that it even got its own Death Battle cast and commission track. While it hasn't been in its peak popularity for a while, I'd still argue that it's one of Link's most popular matchups. So without further ado, let's discuss its connections, contrasts, fight potential, and debatability to see how good this matchup really is. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Connections and contrasts get 3 stars. I'll read their connections and contrasts and then give the reasoning behind my rating. Both Link and the Tarnished are mute amnesiacs who wake up in a cave after decades of slumber, shrouding their backstories in mystery. They're guided by a maiden throughout their journey, who doesn't disclose any information about their pasts. Near the end of their journey, they face a red-haired godlike being who is responsible for the calamity spreading across their world, who evolves into a more bestial form during the fight. Their main weapons are a sword and shield, but they can use many other types of weapons and even fight on horseback. They're commonly associated with a specific heroic virtue, which is also tied to a conceptual golden object that holds great significance in their story. And finally, Link was special and loved by everyone, but he was eventually forgotten after failing his quest. However, the Tarnished was a nobody and hated by everyone, but they started to stand out after slaying numerous demigods. I gave these connections 3 stars because although they're kinda cool, they don't have a lot of meta connections, which isn't great since I like matchups with meta connections. My favorite part of these connections is actually the contrast, which I think is pretty interesting. I honestly considered giving this section 4 stars, but that seems a bit too generous. Analysis potential gets 5 stars. While Link has been on Death Battle before as mentioned in the intro, this matchup mainly focuses on the Hero of the Wild, the version of Link from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the latter of which hadn't come out when Link had last been on the show. Link vs. Cloud 2 used a composite version, and this dude still lost, which meant they had a lot of powers and abilities to go over, but the storytelling aspect wasn't quite as developed. But since they're focusing on only one version of Link, they would be able to focus more on his story while not compromising the powers and abilities section. The Tarnished, on the other hand, has never been on Death Battle before, and I bet the writers would have a field day with their insane lore and abilities, which is expanded even further thanks to Shadow of the Erdtree and Night Rain. The main problem with the Tarnished is that Elden Ring doesn't have a canon ending, but they could either address this or leave the ambiguity as it is. Animation potential gets 5 stars. Both of these series are known for their insane art styles and 3D visuals, which could make this one of the most well-animated fights on the show. We've seen a taste of this from The Chosen Undead, because although they're from Dark Souls, it's produced by the same company and is also in the same genre. The obvious thing to say is that their vast array of abilities helps the animation potential, but this Reddit user also pointed out that you could have a funny interaction with pots. Pots can be thrown by the Tarnished to deal damage, and Link loves breaking pots for some reason, so you could have a scene where the Tarnished is throwing pots at Link and he's just breaking all of them. Although this would be a bit out of character for the both of them. You could also have them summon allies to fight for them with the Spirit Ashes and Vows of the Sages, or you could even reference the bike scene from Link vs. Cloud 2, but instead they're fighting on horseback. Near the end of the fight, the Tarnished could turn into their Lord of Frenzied Flame form and kill Link, only for him to come back with Mipha's Grace and kill the Tarnished. I tried my best to come up with a win scenario for the Tarnished, but I admit I don't know a whole lot about them. Despite that, I still think the animation potential is extremely versatile and you can't really go wrong here. Dialogue potential gets 2 stars. Both of these characters are silent protagonists, meaning they can't talk besides grunts and whatnot. Besides headcanons and theories, neither of these characters have any way to communicate with each other besides facial expressions, but that mainly applies to Link if we're using their canon designs. However, that doesn't mean they can't have any interactions at all. I mentioned a few possible ones in the animation potential section, like a bit with pots or fighting on horseback. This category is severely held back since these two never talk, but that doesn't mean you couldn't do something with this section. Music potential gets 4 stars. Brandon Yates made a commission track for this matchup called Fallen Leaves Ballad. I don't know a lot about either of these series, so I'm not completely sure what the name is supposed to reference, but I do like it. I also heard Tears of the Tarnished as a potential track name as well, which also sounds pretty cool, and I do understand the references for that one. And after listening to Fallen Leaves Ballad, I do think that an official death battle track has a lot of potential. I assume it would be at least a bit similar to Brandon's version, and it's possible he would make the official track, or at the very least be a collaborator on it, but I would be interested to hear Therewolf Media's take on this matchup. It would be cool if they got the Death Battle Choir to do some medieval vocals like with Fireborn, as both of the Zelda tracks we've had on the show were just instrumentals. However, I don't think it's required or anything, and the song could definitely work without them. Debatability gets 4 stars. Link is around large planetary with relativistic to FTL speeds according to Versus Battle Wiki, but the Tarnished does not have a page on Versus Battle Wiki. They have a few pages on CSAP Wiki, but none of them are that great, and no one seems to agree on where they scale. Their power generally ranges from about mountain level with massively hypersonic speed to out-reversal with irrelevant speed from what I've heard. However, this isn't just a debate about stats, it also relies on hacks. From what I've heard, the Tarnished dominates this category with Destined Death and their other death manipulation hacks, but I think Link stands a decent chance with his hacks abilities. I mean, according to Fan Battle, Link would win against the Tarnished, but this is the same channel that thinks Cell would win against Metal Sonic, so maybe they're not the most trustworthy source. If Elden Ring scaling wasn't so weird, then maybe I could give this category a more accurate rating, but it also helps this section as well. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this matchup discussion, please consider clicking that subscribe button and turning on all notifications. Make sure to like this video if you want to see more discussions in the future just like this one. If you have any suggestions for a future matchup discussion, feel free to drop your ideas in the comments. And finally, join my Discord server by checking out the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Goodbye.